still got market. If not market.
What's going on, guys? It's your favorite mortgage lender, Abdel Khawatmi, Got Mortgages. We're about to have on stage with us our good friend Dan Latini with Dan Home Services, also known as Dan the Bugman. Dan is going to share with us his story on how he started off working for larger companies, eventually embracing the entrepreneur life, running a super successful company for just shy of 3 years now. We're going to find out some of the most important things that I think a lot of successful entrepreneurs tend to struggle with, that balance between work, family, and most importantly, getting your kids involved at a young age and embracing their strengths and understanding what they're looking to accomplish. We'll find out some of the successful strategies he's doing to help explode his business, from networking to identifying some of the things with hiring people and all that fun stuff. Make sure you guys tune in, and this is another episode of the Got Mortgages podcast. What's going on, guys? It's your favorite mortgage lender, Abdel Khawatmi, Got Mortgages, here on another episode of the Got Mortgages podcast. And we have got our very good friend, Mr. Dan Latini. Dan, what's up, my friend?
Thanks so much for having me, Abdel. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
So Dan is a very good personal friend of ours, along with business partner and colleague, currently services our personal residents as well. Dan owns Dan Home Services, also branded as Dan the Bugman. Dan is currently based out of, is it Burlington County? Burlington County, services predominantly Monmouth, Ocean, and I'm sure everything throughout as well.
Yep.
Dan, what's up, buddy?
Not much, man. I'm so happy to finally be here, man. Thanks
Absolutely.
So much.
Well, appreciate you taking the trip.
Yes, sir.
I know, listen, this is obviously the month of May,
Yep.
which is crazy. This is your time now.
Yes, sir.
Right? I know we'll talk about all your different packages because you guys are at our house throughout the year.
Yep.
But for those of you who don't know you, what do you do?
Yeah, so Dan Home Services is a full-service pest control business. I always like to say, think of me for whatever's bugging you, friends and family not included. I have realized that sometimes I get pigeonholed into that because people just think like, oh, he's just, doing one pest and not this. Oh, every now and then I get calls from people like, hey, I hired so-and-so for mice and it's not working out. I'm like, well, why didn't you call me? Oh, well, you're Dan the Bugman, not Dan the Mouse Man. I was like, all right, fair point.
Interesting.
So I like to help people out with all the seasonal what-ifs, from ants, ticks, mosquitoes, termites, anything and everything in between.
I love that. And how did you end up, let's think back, right? How did you end up figuring out that pest control, pest services, right? That would be the industry name.
Yep.
How was that? Like, this is something that, that I think I can go.
Yeah, so I never intended to be Dan the Bugman whatsoever. I don't think anybody in the industry, unless you are like a young kid, really like involved in the science and you grow up wanting to be an entomologist, essentially a bug doctor, nobody ever gets in the industry, thinking, hey, I want to grow up to be an exterminator. Everyone just kind of falls into it for one reason or another and kind of get bit by the bug, so to say. For me, it was completely COVID. And, as you know, my wife has some health issues. Sure. So when COVID shut down, I lost my current job, had to find work, put food on the table. Pest control was essential. They were still going out because it is, a public health service to keep people protected from all the things that can transmit diseases, viruses, pathogens, things like that.
Got it.
But yeah, I never intended to be involved with it whatsoever. But complete necessity, and it was the first job that I've ever had that always had to have me constantly thinking, challenged me. It was never an opportunity for me to get bored because I'm always having to think like a scientist, really think outside the box, always having to, what is this thing I'm dealing with? Why did it get here? Where did it come from? How can I take care of it without harming other things in the process as well? So yeah, I love the science of it and never bored a day in my life. It's fantastic.
That's awesome. Now, you obviously, so you worked for a larger company,
Yep.
right? We won't drop names here, but you worked for a larger company. Was it pretty much like a 9 to 5, right?
Yeah, you could say that.
To an extent.
Yeah.
And I love this question, and our colleague Tom, who was on here not that long ago, that I call it the golden handcuffs,
Okay.
right? Where that 9 to 5 is that golden handcuff where, yes, there's that sense of stability involved.
Yep.
But then you also have the sense that, again, it's 9:02. Why are you not on the road, or why is your truck still parked and what have you? At what point did you realize that, hey, I need to go and open up my own? Or was it, God works in many ways. Was it because it was like, hey, I just got temporary let go, right? And I got to find my own thing?
I would say a little bit of both. So, almost 2.5 years ago, so it was November of 2022. So at that time, working for big corporate, I always made it very clear that like, hey, I'm a family guy first. My wife has some stuff. I gotta be home when I have to be home, but I always took care of my stuff, right? I was a very high producer. They kind of got me into networking and, chamber of commerce, and whatnot, and everyone got to know me as Dan the Bugman. So after 2 years of working for them in the Ocean County in the Toms River area, kind of got to a point where some new bosses came in. They didn't like that I was working from home one day a week, so my wife can get some health things taken care of from her nurses. And they said, hey, no one can work from home anymore. I said, well, I can't do that. So they actually demoted me to a phone position, which I did not want to do because, again, that's just boring to me. I like the adventure. I like getting out, talking to people, helping people. So I was already at that point starting to think like, hey, before I started working for this company, I already had, so I worked for two different pest control companies before I started my own. The first company, one of the big three, we'll call them. So I was working for them for a couple years as a technician. They were the ones that kind of like really, I guess, fueled the passion in a way. And then I left them and I thought at that time, hey, let me get my realtor's license. Let me get my LLC started up. And then it was my last company. They found me unsolicited. I was not looking for a job whatsoever. But they found me somewhere, offered me a job that was really good financially. And at the time I was like, all right, hey, I'll do this for a little bit more, learn a different aspect of the industry. And, so when I got demoted from that sales position, I was like, hey, I'm going to restart up my idea of the LLC now that I have a little bit more experience in both sides of the coin of pest control, both the technician aspect and the management sales role aspect.
Got it.
And then I also had the background of the community behind me. Everybody knew me as Dan the Bugman. So, one of my colleagues that at the time I thought was a friend of mine, I said, hey, I have this idea. I'm probably not going to be around too much longer. It's November now. Come next busy season, April, I'm going to leave this company and start my own thing. They decided to share that information to my bosses. They fired me right before Christmas. So I was already in the process of starting my company and it was already, wheels were turning. They just accelerated the process. So for the first few months, the holiday season, it was the slow season. Nothing is awake at that time of year except for mice, and I had no customers. So I was in complete survival mode. So that's when I started reaching out to anybody and everyone. I really started marketing. We were talking about this yesterday at another networking group where my very first day that I got fired, there was a nighttime networking group through the Toms River Chamber of Commerce. I didn't have any cards, didn't have anything, but I hand wrote my name and my number and the business name on pieces of paper and just tore them up and handed them out to everybody. And that's how I started. Just complete, the wheels were already turning, but it was survival mode and necessity at that point.
I love hearing that. And I think the most important part that I hear from there, one is sometimes we need that push, right? Whether it's a spouse or whether it's a situation that we could take from a negative to a positive. Yep. And you obviously took that, let's call it a negative situation into a positive and took that boost. Similar in our world, right, where we were working so long and then we went through the firm, we were doing the law firm and mortgages simultaneously at the same time. We were making a lot of money doing both. And then eventually, obviously our employer at the time was like, hey man, you're making too much money doing, the real estate. And then you're also simultaneously leveraging our law firm. I'm like, well, I'm also bringing you deals. And then I was like, well, we got to change. The next day I packed my back in dips.
Yep.
So I love hearing that story. Now, what you just said, there's so much to unpack.
Yes.
You're obviously a family man, right? I know you always hear me say faith, family, fitness, finance. Family is obviously essential. I think you guys just hit your 13-year anniversary.
Yep, 13 anniversary.
13 years.
2 years married, 13 years together.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've got two beautiful children.
Yes, sir.
2 dogs?
4 dogs.
4 dogs. Holy shit, dude.
4 dogs, 3 rats, 2 cats, 1 snake, 2 kids.
Yeah, and it's probably harder to, I'm not going to call it maintain, but probably harder to upkeep the pets than it is the dogs. I mean, the pets than it is the kids, right?
At
Sometimes.
Sometimes they're one and the same,
Totally. But talk to us about your kids.
Yeah, so my daughter, 11, Ava, she is smart, but she's also at that age where, she's an 11-year-old girl, going on 21-year-old woman,
Mm-hmm.
you know, has, you know, the mentality already where, you know, mom and dad, I got this, you know, I don't need your, you know, advice anymore. You know, I'm a grown up. So that's interesting to navigate right now. You got your daughter as well, so I'm
Oh,
sure
yeah.
you can
Oh,
relate.
yeah.
But yeah, she's involved in the business. It's a full family thing. So my daughter, she wants nothing to do with anything with more legs than the dogs, which is sometimes funny because, you know, she'll be looking at something that she knows is not dangerous because I've told her a million and one times, but she doesn't want to hear it. She's afraid of it, like it's going to kill her.
Mm-hmm.
But she loves the networking aspect of it. So, you know, you've seen her at some of the vendor tables and events, things like that. Anytime that she has a chance to go out and talk with people one-on-one, she's all about that. Part of it, she just likes when people tell her that she's cute, but also I love to, you know, encourage that because it gives her early conversational skills and the confidence to talk, which is so crucial. So many people unfortunately lack that because they don't have exposure to that, right? So that's kind of where she helps. She helps on like the, you know, marketing side of it, I guess you could say.
Sure.
And then my son Colin, he's 8. He's my Bugman Junior. He is hands-on with the science of it all. And I could not be prouder of him. I love going out to work with him. You know, he's kind of become a mini celebrity as well. Everyone's always asking, hey, what's Bugman Jr. doing? How's he doing? And it's really cool. And, you know, I've been telling my kids recently because Ava specifically, she wants to do nothing with pest control. She wants to be a nurse, which absolutely, that's a fantastic career. I encourage that. And she was always asking like, hey, do I have to work at pest control? Like, no, absolutely not. I'm starting this business for you guys. So once I retire, you guys can run it, sell it. I don't care. I've done my part for you guys. I've set you guys up for success, giving you all the skills that I wish I had learned at an earlier age. And that's really the goal, is to, you know, build a legacy with the business now and set them up for the future generations. So me coming from very humble backgrounds, there wasn't really any exposure to forward thinking. So now I'm trying to do my part to make sure my future generations are set for success.
I love hearing that, man. And, you know, family obviously is the reason why we wake up every morning. I know during the winter time, when it was cold, you were out there also providing for your family away from them, right, in several different ventures. So I can give you kudos to that. Now, obviously, your wife, 13 years. How did you guys meet?
So we met online,
Okay.
plentyoffish.com.
Is that like a website?
A dating website.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so at the time I was living out in Horsham, Pennsylvania. She was living in upstate New Jersey in Summit, about an hour and a half away.
Wow.
And it was meant to be. You know, everyone's different on fate. Me myself, you know, who knows? You know, I've always gone back and forth with the idea of, you know, everything planned in action. But when I look back at our relationship, there's a lot of things that there was no reason for us to ever meet.
Clicked.
So I mean,
on the contrary, got it. Nice.
because like, you know, when we first met each other on the dating website, neither one of us had profiles. We didn't have pictures set up. It was just a little biography blurb. And again, we were an hour and a half away from each other, but we reached out to each other, started talking. A month later, we were dating, and the rest is history.
That's awesome.
It was very serendipitous.
Your business has tremendously, you know, exploded, which is awesome. Now, I never like talking about just work, right? You mentioned several times about the chamber and networking and stuff like that. At what point did you realize within your business that it's so much more than just the calls, right? Like we were talking about, right, where you got demoted to calls and you're like, dude, this is not how you do business. At what point did you realize, like, hey, networking is actually a huge gateway to simultaneously help increase my business?
Yeah, so I realized I had never heard of a chamber of commerce at all until I had started doing my business when I got my realtor's license. My broker at the time said, hey, get involved in the local chamber of commerce. I didn't think anything of it. But then my last company in Toms River, they said, hey, there's a great local chamber of commerce, get involved with it. And, you know, like everyone, when they first start networking, it's so foreign. I tell everyone, like, nobody wakes up in the morning saying, I want to go to talk to a room full of strangers. It's not natural. It's not comfortable. But, you know, getting involved into those atmospheres and being surrounded by entrepreneurs, people with vision and dreams and hopes and passion, you know, they're waking up every day and going out into this uncomfortable situation to, you know, move the needle forward for whatever their goal is. And kind of being surrounded by those people kind of really fueled the fire, thinking like, hey, all these people are doing it. I got this. Like, I can do this too. So it was very quickly on that, like, I realized, like, hey, there's something really special here. Again, I was with the company for like a year and a half before everything, but I would have been a fool if I let go of the name that I made for myself, the network, the friendships, relationships, both personal and professional that I made. It's truly special, the power of networking. I think in the last podcast that you did, or maybe it was with Tom, you had made mention that you don't like the word networking. I agree. We do have to have a better word for that. Networking just seems so businessy.
Yeah,
There's so much more to that.
So there's two words that I hate that get thrown around a lot. Networking, I would rather say collaborating, and recruiting, and I would rather say business development.
I love it.
Because I think they have like a negative connotation to it, like that stereotype of networking. Oh, you're just going out to drink, or you're just going out to have small talk and stuff like that.
Yeah. Or just throw around the business cards.
Totally.
Yeah.
Where in reality, no, I'm looking to collaborate with certain professionals. And then in our world, right, on the recruiting side, it has such a bad connotation to it. So I'm like, it's more business development is, hey, you're a successful professional. Not how can I recruit you to come on our team. It's how can I help you develop your business through our resources and through stuff like that. How long has Dan Can Home Services been around?
So I started the LLC back in 2022.
Okay.
I didn't actually start working it until 2023.
Got it.
So I had it in the back pocket, and yeah, just like you said, I quickly blew up a little bit quicker than I probably should have.
It's a good problem to have.
Very good problem to have. But I survived and still surviving, thriving, having a lot of fun.
Let's go.
So yeah.
I love that. Now, just like always, right, when I have these successful entrepreneurs on, a common question I always ask is, at what point did you realize, like, hey, I can't do everything, right? Like the conversation we were having off stage a couple minutes ago, where it was like, obviously, there's three sides to a business, right? You hear me say sales, service, support. You're obviously the, let's call it service part of the business, where you're doing the work, you're doing the trenches, and then you're done, and then it's like, but now I got to call back clients, or now I got to post on social media and so on and so forth. Now, from what I've seen in your trajectory in your business, you now have a tech on the road, right? You also now have more opportunities to support your business, right? And so on and so forth. Tell me, how was that transition? Because just like anything, right, we always have conversations is nobody can do it as good as I can, right? At what point were you like, I do need to call it delegate and things like that?
Yeah. So it is interesting because I come from, two worlds. So I have 16 years experience managing teams, both small and large. The largest team that I ever managed was 200 plus, and that was across state lines. So I have a lot of experience in training large teams, delegating those tasks, running a large system. And then as an entrepreneur, as you know, there's kind of that power control, like, no one can do as good as I can do. However, that's so not true, because we as entrepreneurs need to hire people who are smarter than us and who can do it better than us, because it's our job to lead, not do. So, I've always known that I need to have a team behind me. But, as I'm growing now I'm finally at the point now where I can, kind of afford that team. And unless I do have that team in place, I'm going to be kind of, capped at what I can do. And that's not the goal. So I want to see myself with, so right now I'm 2.5 years in business. I'm already projecting by year 5, I'll have $1 million business. I want to have 3 to 5 techs on the road by then. I want to have at least 1-2 CSRs on the phones doing everything. So, everything that I am projecting for myself right now is moving in the right direction. Sure. It's just a matter of doing the legwork now.
Yeah, it's always a tough transition when you bring on that additional teammate, right? Let's call it. And I never like to say employees, teammate. When you bring on that additional teammate, it's identifying their SWOT, right? Their strength, their weaknesses, their opportunities, and their threats, right? Which I'm sure you've done several times. And then having to kind of pivot, and then very quickly realizing what are they really good at, targeting that, and then what are some of the areas that they can improve on, and then taking it from there. If people are looking to find you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, so best way is my website, whocandancan.com. Yes, I know it's cheesy, but memorable. You can also find me on socials, very big on LinkedIn, love my LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. You can reach me on my phone number, 609-224-8071. But again, website, whocandancan.com.
I love it. Well, appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We've still got so much to unpack, but we'll definitely save that for next time.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
it, brother.
This was another episode of the Got Mortgages podcast. Make sure you guys follow Dan. Also visit his website, dancanhomeservices.com.
WhoCanDanCan.com.
I'm sorry. Who Can Dan Can. I knew I didn't have it right. So Who Can Dan Can. Sneak peek too, because they are in the process of also launching a business networking group as well. So definitely excited to hear more about that when we have Dan come back in the studio and share with you how you can take your business from being the shy entrepreneur to a successful entrepreneur and now sharing it with the community. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll talk to you guys soon.